I stared at the crisp white paper in my trembling hands. My own son had given me an eviction notice. I had given birth to him, raised him, loved him unconditionally. And yet, here I was, being thrown out of the very home I had built with his father. The home where I had kissed his skinned knees, cooked his favorite meals, and stayed up during his childhood fevers. The words blurred on the page. You are hereby required to vacate the premises within 30 days. A cold dread settled in my stomach as I lifted my gaze to face him. Nathan stood in front of me, arms crossed, his jaw set in that same stubborn way he had as a child when he wanted his way. But this was no childhood tantrum. Mom, this isn't personal, he said flatly. It's just practical. Olivia and I are expecting a baby. We need the space. You'll be fine in the apartment we arranged for you. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? A lump rose in my throat, but I refused to let him see me break. My gaze flickered to Olivia, my daughter-in-law, standing beside him, her arms wrapped around her growing belly, her lips curled in the slightest smirk, as if she was enjoying every second of this. I felt like I was drowning. I turned back to Nathan, searching for any hint of the boy I had raised, the one who used to wrap his small arms around my waist, whispering, I love you, Mom. The boy who had promised to take care of me in my old age, who had once cried when he thought he'd hurt my feelings. But that boy was gone. You tricked me, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Nathan exhaled sharply. Look, you signed the documents. Legally, the house belongs to me now. I didn't force you to sign them. It's done. I felt my breath hitch. He was right. I had signed the papers. He had come to me weeks ago, smiling, saying he needed my signature for some minor property adjustments. I hadn't thought much of it. He had been so casual, so warm. I had trusted him. And now I was paying the price. I straightened my spine, ignoring the pain in my chest. And where exactly am I supposed to go? Olivia let out a fake, sympathetic sigh. The little house we found for you is perfect. A bit old, yes, but nothing a little cleaning won't fix. Nathan nodded. It's just outside town. Quiet. You'll love it. They had planned this. Every detail, the false kindness, the reassurances, the gentle nudges to sign. I had walked right into their trap, blind and trusting. A sharp pain shot through my heart. I wanted to scream. I wanted to curse, to demand how he could do this to me. But I swallowed it down. Instead, I did something that surprised even me. I smiled. It was small, forced, but it was there. Nathan frowned. Olivia's smirk faltered. You're right, I said softly. If it's legally yours, there's nothing I can do. A flash of relief crossed Nathan's face, but he quickly masked it. I'm glad you understand, Mom. Oh, I understood perfectly. I understood that my son had betrayed me, that my daughter-in-law had manipulated him, that they had played me for a fool. But I also understood something else, something they didn't. They thought I was weak, helpless, that I would simply pack my bags and fade into the background of their perfect new life. They had no idea what was coming next. I packed my things without a word. The house felt different, like the walls themselves were watching, whispering, asking me why I wasn't fighting. My son barely looked at me as he helped his wife settle in. Her belly was round now, pregnant. They wanted my house, my home, for their growing family, and I was nothing more than an obstacle in their way. When I stepped out of that house for the last time, I didn't look back. Not yet. The place he had arranged for me was a disgrace. The moment I stepped inside, the smell of mold filled my nostrils. The heating barely worked, and the walls were thin, like paper. The roof had a leak, and every time it rained, I had to scramble with buckets to keep the water from ruining what little I had. This was what my son had deemed manageable for me? On the third night, the cold seeped into my bones so deeply that I curled into myself, shivering. I wasn't a young woman anymore. I couldn't live like this. But that wasn't what broke me. What broke me was the loneliness. I had spent years raising that boy, sacrificing, giving, loving. And here I was, discarded like an old coat in the back of a forgotten closet. He hadn't even called to check on me. I let myself cry that night. I let myself feel the weight of the betrayal, the pain of being tossed aside by the one person I had given my life for. But when morning came, I wiped my tears. I looked at myself in the mirror, my reflection staring back at me with quiet determination. It was time to set my own plan in motion. I had always trusted Nathan. He was my boy, my only son, the one I had raised alone after his father passed away. I had gone without meals to make sure he ate, worked extra shifts so he could have new shoes for school, stayed up late helping him with homework, even when my bones ached from exhaustion. So, when Nathan handed me the piece of paper saying, "Mom, you need to sign this," it's just a routine legal document, something to make sure the house is taken care of in case anything happens to you. I almost shed tears. His face had been smooth, unreadable. Too smooth. I glanced at the fine print, but the letters blurred together. I wasn't as sharp as I used to be, and I hated admitting that my eyesight wasn't what it once was. "I'll read it over later, Nat," I said, forcing a smile. He stiffened just for a moment. "No need, Mom." "I had my lawyer draft it up. It's all straightforward. It's just to help with taxes and stuff." Taxes. Stuff. Vague words that meant nothing. I turned away, walking to the kitchen, feeling his eyes on my back. "I just need my glasses." "Mom, come on." He laughed, but it was thin, forced. "You trust me, don't you?" I couldn't bring myself to give him an answer. I reached for my glasses on the counter, but my hands weren't reaching for them at all. Instead, they found my half-full cup of water. My fingers barely brushed it before it tipped, spilling directly onto the paper in my other hand. I gasped, watching the ink smear instantly. Nathan cursed under his breath. "Mom, you have to be more careful." I lifted my hand to my mouth, feigning shock. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." He snatched the paper from me, shaking off the water, but it was too late. It was ruined. His jaw tensed. Then he exhaled through his nose. "It's fine. I'll print another copy. Just don't touch anything." I nodded, clutching my damp hands together, my expression apologetic. "Of course, Nat." He left soon after, muttering under his breath as he walked out the door. The moment I heard his car pull out of the driveway, I sat down heavily at the table. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Fear. Not just because of the paper. Not just because of the way he rushed me to sign it. But because earlier that morning, while I was folding laundry in my room, I had heard him and his wife talking. They hadn't known I was home. And what I had overheard made my blood run cold. Nathan's voice had been low, urgent. "She'll sign it today. Once she does, the house is ours, and we can start making the changes. We'll give her a smaller apartment, let her figure out what to do with it." His wife had hummed, "You're sure she won't fight back?" Fight back. Like I was some old senile woman who wouldn't know better. I had gripped the fresh sheets in my hands, my breath shallow. That's when I knew. My son, the boy I had nursed through fevers, comforted through heartbreaks, sacrificed everything for, was trying to take my home from me. And he thought I wouldn't fight back. He thought I would just sign the paper and hand over the only thing I had left in this world. I swallowed the lump in my throat and slowly, carefully reached for the wet paper he had left behind. The ink was smudged, unreadable in places, but I could still make out a few words. Transfer of ownership. Grantor Mary Ellis. Grantee. Nathan Ellis. My name. His name. My house. His house. Or at least it would have been. I closed my eyes for a moment, taking in a deep, shaking breath. Then, with steady hands, I folded the wet paper and slipped it into my purse. I needed a lawyer. Because my son had made one crucial mistake. He thought I was weak. He thought I wouldn't see through him. He thought I would sign away my home without question. But he had forgotten one thing. I was the woman who raised him, and I knew how to play this game better than he did. After I got myself, I wasted no time. I grabbed my coat and my keys, my heart hammering as I stepped outside. The cold air hit my face, grounding me, reminding me that this was real, that my own son, the boy I had cradled in my arms, the child I had sacrificed everything for, was trying to steal the very roof over my head. I gripped the steering wheel tightly as I drove, my thoughts racing. There had to be a way to stop this, and I knew exactly where to go. Thomas Greer had been my lawyer for years, since before Nathan was even born. He had helped my late husband and me draft our first will, guided me through the painful process of settling my husband's affairs after his passing, and even advised me when I refinanced the house years ago. If there was one person I could trust, it was him. When I walked into his office, his eyes flicked up from his desk, and his lined face softened. "Mary," he greeted warmly, standing up and gesturing for me to sit. "It's been a while. How's Nathan?" I swallowed. "He's good, Tom," I said. I didn't have the strength to say anything else. His sharp eyes narrowed immediately. "Something's wrong." I pulled the wet, crumpled document from my purse and set it on his desk. "I need you to tell me exactly what this is." He adjusted his glasses, took the paper, and carefully spread it out. His eyes moved across the page, his frown deepening with every passing second. Then he exhaled sharply, looking up at me. "Mary," he said slowly, "this document transfers the deed of your home entirely to your son. If you sign this, he will own the house outright. You'll have no legal claim to it." Even though I already knew it, hearing it from him sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. My hands clenched in my lap. And if I had signed it? He hesitated. "Legally, he could have you evicted." My own flesh and blood had plotted to make me homeless. I let out a slow breath. "Tom," I said, keeping my voice steady, "can you make me a document that looks just like this?" But I paused, my lips curling into the smallest hint of a smile. "With a few changes?" His brows lifted slightly. "Mary," he said carefully, "what exactly are you planning?" I met his gaze, unflinching. "Something my son will never see coming." Tom worked quickly, scanning the original document into his computer and retyping it word for word. He kept everything nearly identical. Same formatting, same wording, same legal jargon. But in this version, instead of making Nathan the sole owner, it ensured that I remained the sole owner of the house. To anyone glancing at it, it was the same document, but in reality, it was the opposite of what my son wanted. As he worked, he glanced at me occasionally, his expression unreadable. "Mary, I have to ask," he finally said. "Why not confront him? Why not just refuse to sign?" I stared at the paper in front of me, my fingers tracing the edge. "Because, Tom," I said softly, "if I just refuse, he'll find another way. He'll keep pushing until I'm too tired to fight, but if he thinks he's won..." I let the words hang in the air, watching as understanding dawned in his eyes. "He won't see it coming," he murmured. I shook my head. "Not until it's too late." He leaned back, rubbing his chin. "You always were a sharp one, Mary." I gave him a tired smile. I had to be. By the time I left his office, the new document was tucked safely in my purse. Now all I had to do was wait. 3 days later, Nathan walked into the house like he owned the place already, his smile practiced, his demeanor smooth. "Mom, I brought the new papers," he said, waving them in the air. "Nice and dry this time." I laughed lightly, playing my part. "Oh, good. I felt so bad about the other one." He set the papers in front of me and handed me a pen. "Just sign here," he said, tapping the bottom. I picked up the pen, my hand hovering over the page. "Oh, Natty, be a dear and grab my reading glasses from the counter." He sighed but turned to get them, walking toward the kitchen. The moment his back was turned, my hand shot into my purse. In a blink, I swapped his document with mine. By the time he returned, I was holding the pen again, my expression serene. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said. I signed my name. And just like that, my fate was sealed. Except, it wasn't my fate. It was his. For the next 2 weeks, I pretended nothing had changed. I lived as I always had, tending to my garden, going to my weekly book club, calling my old friends to catch up, and all the while my son was busy perfecting his plan. He thought he had me right where he wanted me. So, when the eviction notice arrived in the mail, I acted the part perfectly. I gasped when I saw it, clutched my chest as if my heart might give out, called Nathan in tears, begging for an explanation. And when he arrived, smug and composed, I let him tell me with his own mouth that he had taken my home from me, that he had found a small apartment for me, as if he were doing me a favor, that it was for the best, that I should just accept it. So I did. I packed my things, walked out of the house I had lived in for decades, and moved into the tiny, broken-down apartment he had arranged for me. I let him think he had won, because the moment he believed it, when he felt the safest, the most comfortable, was when I would strike back. He thought he was the mastermind. He thought I was weak. But he had no idea who he was playing against. And soon he was going to find out. The apartment Nathan had arranged for me was laughable, small, musty, and falling apart at the seams. The paint peeled from the walls, the plumbing rattled like a death cough, and the heating barely worked. It was the kind of place no mother should ever be dumped into by her own son. The following week, I made the call that would change everything. The buyers were waiting. A wealthy couple, legally sharp and looking for a historic home. They had been interested in my house for weeks, ever since my lawyer had quietly reached out. I smiled as I spoke to them. It's time. We finalized the sale within days. Nathan didn't know it yet, but he was already living in a house that no longer belonged to him. 1 week later, Nathan received a knock on the door. He opened it to find a courier holding an envelope, eerily similar to the one he had given me. "Mr. Saunders?" the man asked. Nathan nodded, taking the letter. He tore it open. His eyes scanned the words, and his face drained of color. Olivia came up behind him. Nathan swallowed hard. "It's an eviction notice." Olivia laughed. "That's ridiculous. This is our house." Nathan looked at the letter again. Then, almost mechanically, he read aloud. "The property located at 482 Willow Lane has been legally purchased by Mr. and Mrs. Anderson. The previous owner no longer has rights to the property. You are required to vacate within 14 days. Olivia's smile faded. What does that mean?" Nathan staggered back, gripping the doorframe. "This must be a mistake," he whispered. "I own this house." Nathan must have felt invincible when he handed me that eviction notice. I imagine he grinned as he walked away, already picturing the new nursery he and Olivia would build in my home. But the day Nathan received his eviction notice? Now, that was a moment worth remembering. He stood in the doorway of his house, the house he stole, staring at the crisp letter in his hands. His face twisted in confusion as he read the words over and over again. Olivia, standing beside him, peered over his shoulder, then let out a nervous laugh. "This is a mistake, right? Someone's messing with us." Nathan didn't answer. He couldn't. His eyes darted across the page, scanning for some loophole, some sign that it was all a cruel joke. But there it was, in bold, inescapable print. "You have 14 days to vacate." I wasn't there to see his reaction in person, but oh, how I wish I had been. Nathan, of course, didn't leave quietly. No, my son, so sure of his brilliance, so convinced of his untouchability, marched straight into a courtroom, dragging his wife with him. He was livid. The way I heard it, he barged in like he owned the place, as if the judge should have apologized for the inconvenience. Olivia clutched his arm, trying to mask her own panic as they sat at their table. Across from them, the couple who now legally owned the house sat calmly, their lawyer prepared. The moment the judge called the case, Nathan stood up so fast his chair nearly toppled over. "Your Honor, this is insane," he barked, waving the eviction notice. "This house is mine!" The judge raised an unimpressed eyebrow. "Please, Mr. Saunders, sit down," Nathan huffed, but he obeyed. Then, with that smug arrogance he always carried, he handed over his proof, the paperwork he had so carefully orchestrated when he tricked me into signing away my rights. The judge took the documents, flipping through them with a neutral expression. For a moment, Nathan's confidence returned. I imagine he thought he was winning, until the judge's frown deepened. Silence fell over the room as the judge reread a particular section. He adjusted his glasses, turned another page, then exhaled sharply. Nathan, growing impatient, smirked. So, as you can see, there's no case here. I own the house. Mr. Saunders, the judge interrupted. Nathan's smirk faltered. This document here proves otherwise. Nathan leaned forward. Excuse me? The judge turned the document slightly, tapping a section with his pen. According to this contract, you were never the legal owner of the property. A chilling silence settled over the courtroom. Olivia paled. What? Nathan snatched the papers back, his eyes darting across the fine print. His lips parted slightly as if his brain was short-circuiting. No, this is wrong, he mumbled, his face darkening. She signed it over to me. He cut himself off. His jaw clenched, his ears turned red. The judge sighed and looked toward the door. Please bring in the previous owner. And then I walked in. I made my way to the witness stand, walking with slow, deliberate steps. I wasn't rushed. I wasn't rattled. I had been waiting for this moment. Nathan's eyes locked onto mine, wide with shock, then rage. You! He started, but the judge silenced him with a sharp look. I placed my hand on the stand and turned to the judge. Yes, Your Honor. I was the legal owner of the property before it was sold. The opposing lawyer stepped forward, holding up my set of documents. The real documents. Your Honor, these are the original property ownership papers, signed before Mr. Saunders attempted his transfer. They show that, at the time of the sale, the property still belonged to Mrs. Saunders, meaning she had every right to sell it. Nathan's breath hitched. He looked down at the paper in front of him, the one he had. Then he looked at mine. Identical. Except his didn't have his name anywhere on it. His hands gripped the table so tightly his knuckles turned white. No, this isn't possible. I saw her sign them. He turned to me, his voice seething. You signed them, Mother? You... Then it hit him. I saw it happen in real time. The moment the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place in his head, the night he brought me those papers. The accidental water spill. The moment I disappeared into the kitchen. Matt, his voice dropped to a whisper. You switched them, he breathed. I smiled. The judge cleared his throat. The sale of the house was completely legal. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson are now the rightful owners. Mr. Saunders, you no longer have any legal claim to the property. Nathan shot to his feet. You don't understand. This was supposed to be mine. She was supposed to. The judge slammed his gavel down. Enough, Mr. Saunders. If you do not calm down, I will have you removed from this courtroom. Olivia buried her face in her hands. Nathan looked at me with pure betrayal in his eyes. You ruined me, he whispered. I tilted my head. No, sweetheart, you did that all on your own. When Nathan arrived home that evening, he found movers packing up his belongings. His wife was sobbing, demanding answers. And I stood in the doorway watching. Nathan turned to me, fury flashing in his eyes. You stole from me, he spat. I chuckled. You mean like you stole from me? He clenched his fists. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small key. He looked at it, confused. Then, recognition dawned. It was the key to the tiny, run-down apartment he had arranged for me. I pressed it into his palm. Don't say I never gave you anything. His face turned scarlet. You can't do this. That place isn't fit for a pig. I smirked. I know, but if it was good enough for me, it's good enough for you. Then, as he stood there, shattered, humiliated, defeated, I looked him straight in the eye, and I said the last words I would ever say to my son. With a son like you, parents are better off without children. Then, without another glance, I walked away.